Geek Tank is supported by listeners like you.
Get your Uru hammers and your nailer guns, a sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Use Valerian steel, it'll get you to come to the Geek Tank, to the Geek Tank, to the Geek Tank. The Rocky Mountain Geek Tank.
Hi, I'm Guy.
Hi, I'm Troy.
Hi, I'm Chelsea.
And this is Geek Tank Live.
Your pledge-sized podcast.
Now with more extra things.
We're here at Starbucks at First and Wadsworth, and we're talking today about funding, GoFunding, crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding, all the funding options.
All the funding.
And things.
Funding options.
Yes.
So,
And for those of you who were hanging on to every word of the previous thing before the show, it was called Child's Play is the name of the movie, which is the first movie with Chucky, was going to be called Batteries Not Included. So there. If you missed that part, you have to go back and watch it now on Facebook.
yeah, I was going to say. So you can join us on Facebook every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Mountain Time.
Supposedly.
Supposedly. Theoretically.
Yes.
Now, here we all are. We're going to talk today about crowdfunding. That's our topic du jour, which is not to be confused with DiGiorno or Dijon.
Or the soup.
Right.
So, I kind of want to start with GoFundMe,
Okay.
just because who GoFundMe? So, essentially, you can put up a GoFundMe for anything, for anyone. Some examples are
Spock's beard. No, I mean really, we should put up a GoFundMe on Spock's beard. Somebody needs to shave that guy's beard.
Shave that guy's beard.
Seriously.
I thought you were talking about the
Is he
band.
evil? Spock?
No, man, Spock needs to shave that beard.
So GoFundMe primarily is used for people to put up stuff to pay medical bills or funeral expenses.
Yeah, it's getting kind of.
Well, it's for personal causes instead of a product.
Right.
You don't typically go fund your board game.
You don't do that there.
It's
or
not
you
a
don't
business.
Go to podcasts. It's funding things where you're like, I really just need a chunk of change.
My cat Fluffy's sick and I can't afford my vet bills.
My cousin did one for her mother to finally
Her mom.
get her a gravestone, and that was a really good GoFundMe. They actually did finally get one, which was really sweet. Leonard French, who's a popular YouTuber, he's a copyright attorney. One of his dogs was almost stolen, and a shelter actually found the dog with the people that were going to steal it and trusted their instincts and kept the dog. So he started a GoFundMe to raise money for them, and thanks to them, and his supporters were able to donate to that. So GoFundMes are kind of personal causes, charitable causes, and you can send them directly to the charity, which is really, really nice. So you can set those up for your local dumb frenzy or, your local cancer society, that kind of thing, and it will go towards those things. A lot of people use it towards heroes that have done a lot of things for their community and things like that. So that kind of scratches the surface, and with GoFundMe it's a little bit different than the other ones. Whatever is raised automatically goes to the person no matter what.
Right, because you're not
typically
offered something in return for your money. It's charitable donations.
Right, exactly.
Which actually says kind of a sad thing about the state of our society, that a lot of things that like medical care has to be raised by strangers who are willing to offer it instead of it being something that a greater good looks after.
It's not like
for the
we
greater
can
good.
all, for the greater good, pitch in and do the random healthcare for all or anything like that. I'm not gonna mention any names or any bills or prominent politicians right now. But there are things out there. So
We could get into that one. That could be an entire podcast.
So GoFundMe is kind of the basic, your everyday kind of crowdfunding for individual causes, for personal causes, for charities, that kind of thing. For board games, for podcasts, for films, for books, for...
Well, the next category kind of breaks into two of the ongoing and the one-time shot.
Sure.
Right.
Like we were just talking about Kickstarter in our news segment preceding the show. And it's where you have a product that you want to promote, like a movie, a game, a record album,
A book.
a widget. And
A razor for Spock for his beard.
so it tends to be a thing, and usually it is you give us money, you get this thing at some level for whatever amount of money you give us. And almost everyone I've seen always has hey, give us $1 because you like us, but you don't actually want to put more money into the product, but you'd like to just help out a little
Which
aspect.
is good because Kickstarter is kind of risky depending on what you back. For me personally, I will only back projects that have shown that they have stuff already underway. I'm not going to back a project that's trying to get off the ground, like a film with no script and no actors and no
Oh yeah, you're asking for it.
crew. Like that's not okay. A video game that's not already currently in development, that's not promising too much with the schedule. A board game that has not even the basic gameplay down. You know what I mean? I really like to back products like Reds, like Brutality, where they have everything ready to go. They're working on it. They have a backing.
Ones that have had successful Kickstarters in the past.
That
usually
factors into it a little bit, but as long as they're communicative, and I can see that they're communicative, I tend to back Kickstarters more towards like the end than towards the beginning if I don't know them like on a personal or on a community basis.
Right.
Because that way I'm safe and I can see what they've shown so far. My biggest thing that I will not Kickstarter, I just won't do it, is video games. Video games have shown to be a huge problem because they usually go into development hell. There's they lose people, their concept changes a little bit, or they realize that they can't give what they promised, so they just start to collapse. I will not do a video game Kickstarter. And another big reason because of that, there was a game, I'm trying to remember what it was called, but it was this really cool game. I think it was called Shinra, and it was this cool fantasy game, and it was super awesome, and a lot of people backed it. And then Sony came out and said that they were helping to produce marketing-wise, and it was you're a big producer, you make billions of dollars a year, and you abused Kickstarter to get this game off the ground. And it was
Steve Jackson
huge
does that.
backlash.
Steve Jackson's Steve Jackson Games.
He's always been an independent dev, though.
Kind of, but
so-
he makes a ton of money off of his products, so having him kickstart a thing felt weird. Like he kickstarted Ogre,
Yeah.
which was bringing it
I
back.
thought about that too.
And
I mean, and that does kind of make me wonder, is it fair when companies kickstart something? Because I kind of wonder about that too, because I feel like Kickstarter's for you and me to kickstart something, the three of us want to kickstart,
'Cause we've
Geek
never-
Takes thingy.
right, we never done it. We don't have the funding of
Right.
years
Do
of
a
gaming.
Star Trek
creation.
commentary show.
Right, or
So
something
that we
like
can
that.
grab some rights from CBS.
When I always feel kind of like it's a little, I don't know, weird when some large company comes in and says, "Hi, we're kickstarting this thing, our own product, and we're kickstarting it." And I'm like, "Why are you crowdfunding?"
It'd be kind of like if a large Hollywood studio, Paramount,
Yeah,
kickstarted
decided
a
to-
movie, and by paying for it, you're getting a movie ticket in return.
Yeah, it'd be almost like as if CBS were to make a Patreon for their. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm not bitter.
The nice thing about Kickstarter versus GoFundMe, though, is from what I understand, no matter if your GoFundMe project reaches its goal or not, you keep the money. Whereas Kickstarter, if they don't reach their targeted goal, you don't pay anything because you're not getting anything back.
Exactly, because you're not
so
getting anything in
you
return.
kind of risk if you're using GoFundMe for a product that they're going to deliver because they
I
may
agree
have
with Jerry.
they might not
Munchkin's
reach their
awesome.
goal. Yeah, there's so many too. You can have your pick.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for them to do a Munchkin GURPS and a GURPS Munchkin. Because they did a GURPS Vampire.
Merpskin.
GURPS, by the way, stands for Generic Universal Role Playing System, which is just Steve Jackson's role playing game.
I really
and
like GURPS.
Vampire the Masquerade was done by White Wolf, I believe, was the original company that did them.
That sounds right.
And Steve Jackson licensed the IP from them and did a GURPS version of Vampire.
Okay.
And so it's just weird to oh, that's that role playing game, but we're going to adapt it for our role playing system. And
And you're like, wait.
keep waiting for them to do. And now they have Munchkin Smash Up, which Smash Up isn't Steve Jackson, but they did a Munchkin version of Smash Up both ways.
I think he's just trying to like expand and to get other independent game companies to come into the fold as well.
If
which
there's a
definitely
genre
helps.
you like, there's probably a Munchkin that fits in.
Definitely.
But yeah, GoFundMe versus Kickstarter, you have that aspect to think of. Kickstarter itself is one of those that I've only kickstarted a handful of things.
Me too. And I've lost on a couple. I lost on some custom dice.
Oh no.
And I lost on.
So what is the repercussions in something like that?
You have to report them and hope that they can get the money back at some point. It takes a really long time. I think for the dice that I backed, it took like 2 years.
Well, to be
Because I
fair,
backed a metal dice campaign, and I was really disappointed.
to be fair, I mean, a lot of times they say with Kickstarter, you are an angel investor. I mean, you know, and you need to be kind of viewing it that way. And I know that
And some of
recently some people have been trying to hold Kickstarter accountable. But the truth of the matter is you are an angel investor, and just like any business, sometimes it just fails.
yeah.
And the money is flushed, and that's just the way it goes. You know, I start a business. You guys invest in my business. I paid my workers. We don't go anywhere. We fail. The money is lost. I'm not going to pay you guys back for the money that I paid my workers. That's
You
just the way
can't.
it goes.
Yeah.
We failed. The business failed. It collapsed. And that's the way business goes. And I know that there's a certain amount of expectation that, I mean, because that's the way I sort of feel about, I've got a Kickstarter that I was telling Troy about before the show that I'm into. These really cool game mats, which they're hexes.
Game
and-
mats are always scary.
Yeah. Well, I got into it in 2013. I've been waiting this entire time. So,
I think I know what campaign you're talking about. 'Cause
Yep.
I think we were also waiting for mats in my gaming group
yeah, probably.
quite a while.
And they're magnetic and they stick together. Yes, I think we're probably on the same ones.
Oh, that was such a big deal, and it
Yeah.
crashed so hard.
Well, no, I still get updates from them from time to time. And I'm like, you know, if you ever get around to it, yay. If you don't, no, well. But the money for me, in my feeling on this one is, the money is gone. I paid for it in 13. It's
I
been
don't know if
6
that's the law,
years.
though. That may be your personal opinion, but I don't think that's legally the case.
Well, it may not legally be the case, but I mean, that's the way a lot of people are trying to kind of.
So yeah, a creator is legally obligated to fulfill the promises of the projects. Kickstarter's terms of use require creators. So I think that you open yourself up to a class action lawsuit since there's so many people involved. So if you and 1,000 other people spend $100 on something and it doesn't come through, you could probably band together and get a lawyer to sue the creators to get the money. Now the question is, it's a lot of work to go through. Are you going to be successful at getting it back? Depending on what they did with the money, probably not.
And
it's,
would the class action lawsuit technically go through? I mean, that's
Right.
another one of those things. Like I said, technically speaking, we're all angel investors. You know, that's what I mean. It's like the problem is American business has angel investors, and that's what angel investors do.
Okay.
They invest in businesses, and sometimes businesses fail. That's just the way it goes. You lose your money.
Okay.
That's the way it kind of goes.
Yeah,
And
it ends up. It's not Kickstarter's responsibility, of course, because they wouldn't exist
Well,
if they had to pick up the slack for everyone else.
Kickstarter vets a little bit beforehand. Like you have a process that you have to go through. You have to go through
Right.
an application.
Right.
They're very kind of limited on what you can do specifically through their platform, which is nice. So it's not safe, but at least they do vet things a tiny bit. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Another one that's like Kickstarter is Indiegogo, and I'm just not as familiar with them because I haven't done anything with them. But you can do projects, like you can submit an app, and no, you don't have to submit an app. You can just basically go live with whatever you want, and you can raise money for like disaster relief, for charity. You can state that you're going to create products and things like that. So it's a little more like a free form version of Kickstarter. So maybe that's why I've just never even looked at Indiegogo, because I trust Kickstarter at this point, and Kickstarter's actually gone to bat for me before when I
Right.
made a bad investment. So that was nice.
well, and that does make a little bit of a difference. I mean, And like you're saying, I mean, sometimes you're technically opening yourself up for a class action lawsuit. But here again, I mean, I've been part of the whole Palladium.
Well, luckily they came through on their product, though, right?
Well, some of them, but they're stuck on the other half of their stretch goals that they promised.
So they just got too big for
and
their
they've
britches.
collapsed under
They
that.
gave a deadline of you can get our current product for X amount that you've invested. So they failed to give what they delivered, but they kind of refunded in a way.
Right.
If
They
met-
gave you an option.
Yeah.
So
I got the rule book,
that's nice.
which actually I really wanted the rule book, so I'm actually not opposed to it. Nobody else particularly cares for Palladium's rules, but it's nostalgic for me because I played that. That's one of my first rule sets, which,
This is fun. One big thing that kills me about charity and about these things that you hear about is people create joke campaigns, or they create like campaigns that they think will get them money and then they pull them down because they get a lot of backlash for it. And one YouTuber that I just don't appreciate in the community and I don't appreciate as a human being, his name is Onision on YouTube, and he created a GoFundMe because he bought a house in unprotected wetlands. And wetlands are very difficult
Oh, yeah,
to
we had this
maintain
discussion.
and manage, right? So he, after he got subpoenaed and went to court because he was destroying wetlands, like hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of years worth of wetlands, he made a GoFundMe to help him plant trees, and like he'll put your name on a bush and stuff like that he has to plant because the state has required him to fix what the damage that he has done. And he took it down pretty quick because people freaked. People were so angry, and a lot of people reported him, and rightly so, because he needs to pay that out of his own pocket. You can't rely on your subscribers for your stupid mistake. You need to own up to it, and you need to pay it. When they told
That's
you to stop
unacceptable.
destroying wetlands. So like things like that drive me crazy, and I do love the reporting system on like GoFundMe, on Kickstarter. It's really easy to report something and explain why you need to report it and why it's such a big deal.
Knights of the
and they
Dinner
do
Table.
respond,
Maybe.
which is really, really nice.
Have you read Knights of the Dinner Table?
A long time ago. Then there's
Was Steve
bunch-
Jackson in Knights of the Dinner Table? That's a question from the chat room. Who's actually sitting right over there?
One of the characters might have been inspired off of him. I'm not sure. I know they covered a lot of his games because I had one where they were playing Car Wars. I remember reading one like that, and one of the players stayed at the starting line when everybody else drove their cars off. Car Wars, by the way, is similar to like Mad Max, but with rules and in an arena, like Death Wish. Not Death Wish. Sorry, Death Race.
Death
Race
Wish.
2000.
Death Wish.
So Death Wish. But the characters didn't go anywhere, and everybody drove off their cars, and they're going around for the first lap. And they're like, "Well, you're going to lose. You're not chasing us." And as they came around, he had invested all his money into this backwards firing rocket launcher with no armor, no engines, no anything. So as they were coming to the finish line, he just obliterated everybody. Because one of the things with Car Wars is you get to craft your own vehicle with their build rules. So
Okay.
you have so many slots
many
to fill your
points.
vehicle with.
Yeah. Okay.
But that was a Steve Jackson game, so I know that they did Steve Jackson games in Knights of the Dinner Table.
Okay.
I have a unopened playable card game where you play one of the characters for their D&D characters modeled after that, and it's that's one of those I want to do on my own camera sometime for us to try that out.
For sure. So
Way off track, down the
other
rabbit hole.
types of crowdfunding, there's one that we do right now, and
Yes.
it's called Patreon. And Patreon is very interesting just to see what all is on there. There are writers, there are cosplayers, there are certain artists.
Yeah,
there are
unlike
graphic designers, there are podcasts, there are
very
film
very
projects.
creative people,
Yeah, it's more for the creative kids so that we don't have to be starving artists.
and it's unlike the other ones. It's an ongoing type funding instead of a one-time project. So you're either contributing month-to-month type price or a by product. So you might
Right.
say, for every song you produce up to 5 songs a month, I'll give you $5 per song that you give me rights to, kind of thing. And
Right.
and then
And the
they-
idea is, as opposed to Kickstarter, where you would put in $20, you'd put in $1 for 20 months.
Mm-hmm.
So it's spread out, in a longer area. But
And Patreon, since it's continuing, you get access to like blogs or special feeds or behind the scenes or live broadcasts.
We're still trying to figure out all those things.
Only that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different things. My favorite one was I used to follow an artist who's not on Patreon anymore because he's focusing more on his comic, but he used to do speed painting, and it was like I would send $5 a month his way and watch his speed paints once a week, and it was incredible. I like speed painting. It's really cool. It's really relaxing to watch speed paints. So he would make these and he would take suggestions from Patreons and things like that. And so it was really nice to fund that for a little bit.
I have the
that side
weirdest
project.
effect on that one because I'm like, why would you do that? I don't know.
Speed paints.
Well, why would you watch people eat food?
I don't know.
We're not in the right target audience.
I don't know.
Eat food.
Well, and people have been telling me that I need to start filming myself drawing my comics.
Be cool.
And I don't know why.
It's
I have
fun
no
to watch
earthly
everybody's
idea.
process because everybody does art differently. Especially with digital mediums, people work so differently. I've seen people who work like entirely with color first and then they do their line art, and I'm like, how?
Yeah, I don't know. That's
How?
so weird.
How is that possible? It's so cool to watch because it just breaks your brain. Or some people will start drawing a face and then they'll start to add color and then detail and then color and then detail and then color, and it just builds and builds and builds and builds. Or they'll do one stroke paintings where it's all one stroke but it becomes a sketch of a person and you're just sitting there like, wow, you're so talented. So
People are weird.
Patreon is really nice for the creative arts. It's really cool to get those kinds of exclusives, especially with like podcasts and with film projects that are ongoing. I've seen a couple film projects that are ongoing that use Patreon to kind of buffer it up, or shows like internet shows for YouTube, things like that.
Patreon's
so that they can continue.
Also good for you just want to support this artist.
Mm-hmm.
You like this guy. You just want to throw $1 his way so that hey.
Or her way.
It's a very Renaissance
No, his way.
To support the arts.
Yeah.
So, and it's a safe way to do so as well. You know what's coming, everybody's pretty communicative as far as I've seen on Patreon as to what content they're producing and when they're producing it.
Not those Geek Tank guys. They don't know what they're doing, so
That's all right.
they're still trying to
Be
find
more
their footing.
organized.
That G.S. Davis art guy is not doing so good about communicating at this point either. He's having a rough time.
Once we figure it out, we were talking about doing like a non-censored version for our Patreons. Where we
Which
let
would be
Chelsea-
Troy and I doing the exact same thing and Chelsea being
Well,
unleashed.
I would struggle to try to throw in a few swear words here and there to keep up.
I know.
Totally.
We're both like trying very hard to say
I
all
just
the
need to
bad
watch
words.
a Tarantino film before I come because it always triggers me and I start swearing more.
I don't swear like super much. It's just when I'm super passionate about something, I will. It's an F-bomb every other word. Nobody should work with me. My work is so stressful. There's lots of yelling.
Weren't you trying to get me to work with you at one time?
Yeah. I just like to burn off stress really quickly, so I just like to complain about things very quickly, and it's really nice, especially in my industry when it's so stressful and people do really stupid basic things that they don't know is really basic.
For those of you who do not know, we think that Chelsea is lying right now.
That was probably so loud.
Wait.
I know, yeah.
So, yeah, if you're interested in supporting the arts and the show, you can check out our Patreon.
That's right.
And we would we'd appreciate any feedback on like, hey, we would like for you guys
Always-
to do
always
more
happy for
eating
feedback,
videos or
please.
something.
Like secret weird videos where like you have to feel an object and figure out what it is.
Right.
Or
We'll blindfold
play
Guy
video
and Troy and
games
have
or
them taste test
role-playing games. or-
MREs.
Yeah, we should have a chili pepper day though. We should see
Well,
who
I
can eat the
already
hottest pepper.
conceded to Guy though, so
I already
Don't
conceded
just
Troy.
don't just concede to Troy. Let's actually see what happens. We'll do some challenges, some ridiculous challenges.
I can't eat hot peppers.
the only Patreon I thought of was getting our butts tattooed if we reached a certain amount of money, but
I'm not getting my butt
for
tattooed.
any amount of money,
No.
that's ridiculous.
$1.
$1 million.
It is my body, and my body is a
$1
temple.
million.
So, no.
$2 million.
No.
$2 million and $1.
No. Not doing it, sorry.
What about you
For $1
actually
million,
get to
we'll
meet
put a butt on the
BTSO
video, and the butt will be
and
his.
spend an hour with them at dinner,
That's the way this goes.
and they will each hug you. They will personally do the tattoo themselves. Have I found your price yet? All right, there. So
So this is becoming like the quintessential like assessment of
So
capitalism
Indiegogo's
right here.
one I forgot about.
Really?
Indiegogo is...
I think I forget about them just because I don't do anything
I haven't used them
on
either.
Indiegogo at all.
Before Patreon existed, I'd heard of them because they were the only two I knew of was Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And then GoFundMe, I think, came, in my knowledge realm, they came second or third. But Indiegogo says that they do both business stuff and charitable crowdfunding.
Okay.
And
But they waive their fee for charitable.
That's
yeah,
sweet.
the 5% platform fee.
That's really sweet. I've done some charity stuff also on Facebook, and honestly, I haven't done a lot of research for it, but a lot of people do crowdfunding for their birthdays, which I think is really sweet.
I've seen that. Yeah.
So I've thrown a little bit at that, and I'll actually see where that money goes. I do want to trace it, but Facebook was going to make its own like crowdfunding thing a long time back, and they finally unleashed it, and everybody was like, no, don't do it. They take too much of a cut. It's really stupid. The AdSense, blah, blah, blah.
I'm just laughing at Jerry's comment of having butt
One of our-
tattoos of Chelsea.
One of our live listeners. Well, how do you know I don't already have one?
That's true.
So
I don't want to know. How
So
about that?
there's a few others I'd never heard of on this list. Razoo.
Oh,
Razoo?
Razoo is primarily a charitable fundraiser. There's Fundable, which I think I've heard of, is the business fundraising
okay.
for business fundraising. Crowdfunder or EquityNet.
EquityNet, I've heard of that before for
Those
businesses.
are for businesses. Linden Club, Prosper, ASEAN. These I don't know. Apparently, there's a version. One of the aspects. They're called debt, because what we've been talking about is rewards and donations.
Right.
And charity. And the debt one, I guess, is you're loaning money. I'm trying to find.
So you get
the
to pay it
details.
back.
Trying to fund a business. You're trying to actively fund a business, so they are indebted to you. For
Right. So it's instead of a
donating to them.
product, you're, I guess, debt crowdfunding, also called crowd lending. Backers lend money to a campaigner who must pay back the loan with interest. So it's for entrepreneurs, businesses, and
Well, that's
it's
kind of interesting.
highly regulated,
That's
of course.
very interesting. That has
It's a
to
very
be
different
carefully
concept.
monitored.
Right.
It's a
But
very
that
different
makes sense
concept.
that there's a business version for, entrepreneurs out there that are trying to get off the ground, especially with all the the tech stuff that comes out of Kickstarter, in particular, like fashion and
In fascism. I mean, what?
there were these little eggs that a lot of people were backing on Kickstarter. Friends of mine actually did. They're like little meditation eggs, and they're different stones. And so
Where do you put them in your body?
you hold them.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
The
I was
Fabergé
used-
They're like
eggs.
this big, Troy.
well, if they were any bigger, it would be uncomfortable.
Oh my god. But you're supposed to hold them and meditate on them, because a lot of people feel like different stones have different energies, and they help you do project different emotions and things like that. And so a lot of people were kickstarting these tiny eggs, and they were very expensive because they're basically compounded minerals into this little egg shape. And I was just like, why though? Do you just want that because you want to be hipster and cool? But they did really, really well, and people are using them for meditation. So
So
I have tiny starships. I'm really not
So
going to
one of my-
complain about anybody doing anything.
one of my kiddos has really gotten into this show. It's on Netflix called Brain Games.
Brain Games is
And
good.
one of the
Brains.
episodes is on how you can con people, and it's all based in your presentation, on how you're dressed, and how well you are confident in what you do. And this guy was selling basic rocks that he got from around the corner as gravity stones that were collected from volcanoes, and that they increase your center of balance and the pull of gravity on you if you hold them.
Right.
And he used this leverage trick to sell it. So he'd have you hold your arms out without the rocks, and he would press on your arms straight down at a further point out for the leverage, so it was harder for you to hold your arms out, so they'd go straight down. Then he would place the rocks in your hands, and then he would press on your arms a little closer in, but in at an angle towards your base, so you actually were much stronger. So he could almost lift his whole body up when he pressed like that. So if you don't understand how physics works and gravity, you would think, oh wow, I'm actually able to hold this guy up now, and before I could hardly hold his arms there without my arms going down. And so people were buying that this was science, and they were paying $20 for 2 rocks that the guy got from around the corner. Now, of course, this was for the TV show, so they gave them their money back afterwards.
Right, and
but
told
it
them.
showed how you
You
could,
were Hornswoggle.
Yeah, it's snake oil, modern day snake oil.
The big story that sits with me currently is the Theranos story with founder Elizabeth Holmes.
I've not heard this one.
So she said that she could make a test that they could withdraw like a drop of blood and they could test you for a bunch of different things, and it was going to revolutionize the healthcare industry. And she had like contracts with Walgreens and with local physicians and things like that for this machine that would do all these blood tests off this tiny drop of blood. Well, it all turned out to be BS. Like, it didn't work. It wasn't a big enough sample. Like, there's a reason you need a vial of blood to test for certain things. So she managed to con people because she was just so charismatic. And she actually took this weird turn. She started dressing in black turtlenecks, and her voice dropped a little bit lower, and she looked kind of like
Steve Jobs.
Female version of Steve Jobs. And she was so charismatic and she was so passionate about it that people kept giving her money. I mean, former presidents and senators have given her money, and she was worth about like 2 to 3 billion. And it was all, it fell apart. The technology doesn't work.
I need to learn to do
She
this
was,
trick.
like, able to convince all these people, and it sucks because I was like, cool, she's a female billionaire, you know, she's very young, she's going after things, she's changing the world, she wants to change the world, and then all this came out that actually the product doesn't do what she said.
Hornswoggled.
It's all a big sham, and unfortunately it didn't work out the way she wanted it, but she was able to sell it up enough that people did buy into it, and now she's being sued and probably going to prison.
Yeah, see, I need to do all of this except for the sued and prison part.
So there'll be a big sham wow? Sham wow? Oh, it's okay.
So basically with any crowdfunding thing,
So you need
definitely...
to just sell like cloths that are about this big.
Well, we
and
just
really,
need to look like female versions of Steve Jobs. That's
What is
I
that?
took.
It's a big sham. Okay.
So with anything you crowdfund, with anything you donate money to, you really should, especially if you're making a big investment, like if you are actually going to do like even like $5 a month, look into it, do your homework, see what's happening, see what the consistency is like, see what the reports are like, see what the feedback is like, and you can always talk to other patrons, backers, things like that. You can message other backers and see like, why did you back this? You can message other patrons and say, hey, why do you subscribe to this person? Why do you send them money once a month? You know, you can check out GoFundMe campaigns and see if they are indeed a scam, and get your money back, because GoFundMe has actually been pretty good, or if they actually do provide the services that they're stating, you know. But as always, you should be cautious, because there is always an emotional story of somebody who is just so excited about this product they're making, or they are just in such dire straits that they can't afford these medical bills, or they can't afford the pets that they've owned, or. There's always an emotional element.
Well,
So-
if you're trying to be successful on GoFundMe for something like that, you have to play that angle, I think. If that's
If I
what
just
you're
went
trying
out
to
there
get.
and said, "Hi, give me money," nobody would ever do anything.
Yeah, or if you said, yeah, I've got cancer.
I know, I've tried that.
It's okay though.
It didn't work.
But I could use some money. But don't worry about it. So you really have to
And definitely
be
don't like
more.
stretch yourself either.
Right.
You can't do more, you know, you can do all the good that you want to do in the world, and you can try to donate to charity or somebody in need. I would just
Have
be
a budget.
cautious and have a budget about it. Don't overspend and put yourself in dire straits to the point where you need a GoFundMe.
Because people might not go fund you.
Because people might not. You never know. I mean, kindness to strangers, but also no pity after a certain point.
Okay, so I want to start a GoFundMe, or I want to start a Kickstarter, or I want to start a Patreon. How should I do it?
Well, it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah,
I know, but
because
I mean-
they're all different things.
I have said this a number of times to many artists and things like that.
With Kickstarter and with Patreon in particular, you need to know what your product is, what you're able to give, and when you're able to give it. And you need to be able to communicate if at any point you're not able to produce that, because essentially that is what people are paying you for.
Now,
It's good
Patreon's
to
a
be
little bit of a
honest and
different
open.
thing, and I'm actually going to digress from you on this one. If you're an artist and you have something out there, go on ahead and just start your Patreon, because your mom will always throw
Your mom.
$5 at you. I mean, it really will. That really
Just
is
don't
a
promise
big
things
thing.
you can't deliver on.
Exactly. Or if you
Right.
can't deliver on something one week because something happened, just be honest and forthright about it, and
Yep.
give a timeline of when you can produce things.
But if you're doing Kickstarter, make sure you have your ducks in a row. But if you're
Things should
if you're
already
an
be
artist, then they're coming to you for your art, and they should be. And the expectation on Patreon should be they're supporting you as an artist. I mean, yeah, give things, sure, but Patreon was founded on the tip jar concept.
Right.
This is the tip jar. This is the mythological tip jar.
Right.
So
I think the more successful tip jars are the ones that produce.
right.
And our
You have to
community
produce, but most of us artists are out there doing stuff for free.
Right.
And that
Don't
was
do
the whole
stuff for
point
free.
behind
Don't do stuff for
Patreon.
free. Don't do stuff for free.
Well, yeah, but
Be
you
paid
can't
what you're worth.
you can't help it in this environment. I mean, there's no way for you to be known unless you produce stuff for free. So the idea behind Patreon was to give that back end so that there was a tip jar on the other side. So that was what Patreon was originally designed for. So the important thing behind that, and that's the reason why whenever people come to me and say, well, I don't know what to give my patrons in Patreon, I'm like, well, understand that Patreon was designed to be a tip jar. And so people need to conceptualize that not necessarily as a Kickstarter. You don't have to come up with all of your things for...
And you can work with your Patreons with feedback to find out what they're looking for as well,
Right.
so that you can give back to that community at certain points.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yep, we
I
have
know
no
what
idea
people
what you
want.
guys want.
And originally, when we started, we were all video all the time, and so we were figuring video ads and guest appearances and stuff, which had to drastically change because we're not all video all the time anymore.
Okay, speaking of
all video.
sponsorship, our show is sponsored by Geekway Homes. If you would like a home and you are a geek, then you can flash your headlights at Geekway Homes at www.geekwayhomes.com.
I'll flash my headlights.
Oh, no.
They're a great sponsor. Thank you very, very much.
Yes.
We really do appreciate it. We have some new equipment that we've been able to purchase through our Patreon, and that's mainly what we use it for, to add to our equipment, to add to our budget a little bit so that we can do zany things or go out to more conventions. So if you ever want us to like travel to conventions, maybe consider donating to our Patreon and popping that in.
If you run a convention and you would like us there, just consider how hard it is for us to get there and where we're going to stay, and we're all cool with that, and we will promote your convention.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
That's all the time I think we've got for today. Do you have anything else you want to put on the show?
no, I'm good. I'm sorry. I'm tired. It's Tuesday. I'm going to Chicago on Thursday.
She's just saying.
Panic travel.
The play or the place?
The place.
Okay.
That's good because the play is kind of rough.
Right. Oh my God, no. I haven't murdered anyone.
And
I'm
all
good.
that jazz.
Yep.
But thanks so
And
much
all
for
that
joining us.
jazz. Okay. So, well, that's all the time we've got for today. I've been Guy.
I've been Troy.
And I've been Chelsea.
And this is Geek Tank.
As always, you can email us at questions@RockyMountainGeekTank.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're Rocky Mountain Geek Tank. Feel free to join the conversation. We look forward to hearing from you.
Geek Tank is a production of Foxblade Media and is protected under the Creative Commons 3.0 license. Your hosts today were Guy S. Davis, C. Troy Floor, and Chelsea Kramer. Kevin Weibler is our engineer, and our music was composed by David Coyle. Geek Tank is funded by listeners like you. Please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Foxblade.